Hello, everyone. I'm John Butler, Senior Telecom Analyst in Bloomberg's equity research group called Bloomberg Intelligence. And I'm very pleased to host a very timely roundtable entitled Telecom Transformed, Monetizing the 5G Revolution. In covering the leading telecom providers here in the US and Canada, as well as the infrastructure providers like the tower companies, Nokia and Ericsson, it's very apparent to me that 2021 is really going to mark the first year of widespread 5G deployment on a global basis. Looking ahead, I believe 5G and fiber infrastructure is really going to play an increasingly important role in corporate digital transformation. And to put this in perspective, by 2025, the global digital platform is expected to reach $60 trillion. So, with transactions rapidly moving online, we believe companies are really going to need 5G and fiber to keep pace. Now is the time, in my opinion, to really set the infrastructure in place to meet these future requirements because falling behind, I think, is going to prove very costly. Our virtual roundtable includes practitioners from the leading global telecom providers around the globe. We're really going to talk about the future of the wireless industry with 5G coming on the scene now, and also with carriers expanding their fiber infrastructure at a very rapid rate. And we're going to talk about how infrastructure is going to allow providers to best meet the needs of their enterprise customers. Our discussions will include thoughts on what the enterprise customers are looking for in terms of 5G's key feature set, as well as some thoughts on the evolution of fiber and 5G networks over the next few years. Before we begin, I want to touch on a couple of housekeeping notes here. This is a virtual event, so please bear with us through any technical issues. If Zoom crashes or you get disconnected, please close and reopen Zoom or refresh your browser and log back in. If you have any applications running in the background, please close them now. They can sometimes affect your bandwidth and ability to interact with everyone in the meeting. And if you want to answer a question, please click on the raise hand icon at the bottom of your Zoom screen, and I will do my best to get to you. I want to make sure that we keep the conversation going and flowing very well. And I'd love to hear from everyone. So please keep your answers to 2 minutes if you could. And with that, I'd like to introduce Bob Fox, who is senior partner and industry leader in IBM's Telecommunications and Global Business Services practice. I'd like to invite Bob to say a few words before we begin, as IBM is sponsoring this virtual roundtable. Bob?
Thank you, John. Very glad to be here and sponsoring this roundtable. You all know that IBM's collaborating with telcos around the world on advanced 5G, edge, cloud satellite, and IoT technologies, including several clients represented here on the roundtable. So thank you for your partnership. In my role as IBM's industry leader, I get to work with executives across the industry. Let me share 3 top of mind thoughts. First, telecom is not a growth industry. Globally, revenue is forecast to grow only at 1% to 2% per annum. But while telecom revenue growth has stalled, traffic is not. Network traffic is growing 15 to 20% a year, double that during the pandemic. Second, despite low revenue growth prospects, most telcos are betting big on 5G and fiber deployments. Telcos are spending $1.1 trillion on 5G and fiber networks between 2020 and 2025, and almost 200 5G networks have been launched to date globally. What I'm really excited about is that this roundtable is focused on the enterprise segment. Why? As I engage with our clients, most executives think that the first wave of innovation is going to come from the enterprise segment. Industry-specific use cases like remote surgery, or horizontal ones that span industries like autonomous transportation and distribution. I'm anxious to hear from this group of executives, especially given the mix of our roundtable. Two companies that are at the top of the global list of wireline only or wireline primary companies, and 5 companies that are leading wireline and wireless players, but each making a huge bet on 5G. So I'll close with just 3 highlights from a forthcoming IBM paper, including data from a recent survey of 500 telco executives from 21 countries. First, only 25% of all telcos in our survey have developed a business case for 5G investments. Second, about the same percentage, 25%, agree that they've identified use cases they plan to pilot for enterprises. And finally, the high performers in our group seem to understand the risks of relying too heavily on web scale companies as partners. Half of them agree they must partner with third-party public clouds for 5G-enabled cloud computing, but almost 3/4 of high performers say that partnering with web-scale companies will mostly benefit the web scalers. So we'll get your views on these and other topics today, and I'm happy to share the paper when it's published next week. John, back to you to get us started.
Thank you, Bob. So we'll start with the first question, which is, based on your conversations with enterprise customers about 5G, which enterprise use cases are likely to emerge first? And where do customers see the most value? Is it in generating incremental revenue, or does it lie in cost savings? And Federico, you had gotten back to me and said this was a question of interest. So if we could, why don't we open with your thoughts on this?
All right. Thank you for the question, of course, and all the people in the panel. I mean, of course, I mean, we do have different situations all around the world, of course, in terms of 5G rollout. We started a couple of years back, and we are still rolling out. So 5G rollout network is not complete yet in Italy. And as per team, our ambition is to have a sort of nationwide coverage by 2025. My first thought is that 5G being designed in the B2B business, will be rolled out differently, and that's why we are focusing especially in what we call the industrial district. So compared to the past, in which you remember we roll out 2G, 3G, 4G like an oil, main city, medium city, small city. 5G rollout right now is focusing exactly on the industrial area of the country. We do have a lot of engagement with different enterprise, different industry. The main, at least up to today, the main traction we do see in the enterprise is the manufacturing by far compared to other industries, at least is our experience right now in Italy, and agriculture. So those two areas are the most engaged area in which we see a lot of interest by the large enterprise, especially on the manufacturing. We do have a lot of discussion, especially for example, where do you have production line? You know that to control the AGV right now, you have thousands of kilometers of cable below the floor. With the 5G, so you can control the AGV wireless. So if tomorrow you need to configure in a different way the production line, it's much faster, easier, and cheaper, because through wireless network, it's simpler. And then, of course, when it comes to the production line or manufacturing in general, you have predictive maintenance, you have remote assistant, all those kind of use cases enabled by 5G is super interesting for the manufacturing industry. Then on the agriculture, in Italy we do have, compared to some other similar country, we do have a lot of companies in the agriculture, definitely quite big. In that case, we do have use cases for control the machine along the fields in automatic way. We do have a lot of sensors spread all the field in order to collect data and then control all the activities related to the field. So those two areas are the main area in which we have. Of course, we are talking about those are mainly engagement. So since we are talking about 5G from 2016, 2017, we are still in a way that people has to become familiar with the 5G and with the feature, the potential application of the 5G. So if you ask me, which is the business model, this is the area we are still working on. So it will take still some months, some quarters in order to get to a business model for those kind of use cases. But for sure, there's a huge potential for the 5G application. Last but not least is smart city. We do have a lot of engagement from the public administration, and we do have a real case in Venice, which is one of the most complicated cities around the world because it's very crowded in the lagoon. But smart city is another application which we do see a lot of requests from the public administration in order to get more safe city, more controlled city in a smart way. So those 2-3 areas are the area in which we see more traction for the market.
Got it. Thank you very much. And again, reminder to everyone, if you'd like to answer a question, again, please hit the raise hand icon at the bottom of your screen. I would love to hear from you. So we'll move on to Angie, I see you raised your hand.
Yes, I did. Just a short view from a perspective of Deutsche Telekom, whom I'm working for, or T-Mobile US, if you want to say so. I think it heavily depends on the country, what you, the 5G use cases that are discussed. What we could see is kind of first movers in Germany, at least, were kind of the automotive industry, probably because it's rather strong here. Right now, what we see, which develops, or where we have the business case, where we have developed products, is more for our campus networks part, where you serve, especially what Federico already mentioned, manufacturing. So surprisingly, still in Europe, you have a lot of manufacturing available, and that is something, it's an industry that's really pushing for 5G. You see it with Bosch and Siemens in Germany. They were very successful to pitch for industrial spectrum, meaning they can basically choose who is offering on that spectrum, makes it interesting. Lately, with the virus, the hospitals are engaging more and more in our European footprint. And yeah, as Federico also said, it will depend on the country. If you have big harbors, I'm just talking to a Dutch colleague, the harbor of Rotterdam is most advanced in the Netherlands. So I would say, look at the country where you add oil and gas is probably something more for the United States than for Europe.
We're seeing a lot in the hospitals here too, by the way. I've heard that from a lot of carriers. So thanks for your thoughts there. And Fánan, I see your hand up as well. Would love to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, thanks, John. A lot of similarities. I think the first line of adoption for 5G will be the mobile private network. We're already seeing that. Most of the MPNs out there are 5G. Okay, so that's happening. It's not distant future. So that's first one. I think in terms of sectors or verticals, manufacturing clearly a space, healthcare showing a lot of interest. But I would say everything that is also part of a large supply chains like ports, etc. That also comes across quite strongly. So there is quite a good appetite in those spaces. And I think, and if I were a Disney executive and I would describe the power of 5G, it's almost like you'd see the factory tied into cables, and this allows them just to rip off the cables and rethink the shop floor. And I think this is what these companies are looking at 5G for, which is rethink the workflow and things that were fixed and now can be done at distance. So it's really a operational technology. It's not a communications, it's not IT, it's operational technology we're talking about now. And that changes the conversation. So And if I had to pick like specific use cases, machine vision, I think, has a lot of potential. Video analytics is an area. And even only with Mac, there's potential a lot for that, even before 5G. But also, I think the examples that were mentioned, also if you want the autonomous vehicles, more in the, if you want the factory, etc., that's also use cases that have a lot of traction.
Thank you. And it's funny, I often tell investors, I think the greatest potential for 5G to really sort of change our world is to eliminate a lot of wires in our life. But having said that, I think particularly with private networking, fiber is going to play a key role. And I want to talk more about that in a moment. But I see Francesca has raised her hand as well. So please, would love to hear from you.
Yes. Yes, thank you. Yes, I'm aligned with what has just been said. Manufacturing is leading in terms of use case and business case. We have many use cases from predictive maintenance, remote assistant, and automated inspection through machine vision. But what we have noticed is that post-pandemics, other two verticals are following. Retail and real estate, particularly retail, we're brainstorming with customers who want to use, for example, video analytics and digital signage to deliver tailored marketing campaign to VIP customers. And we are co-innovating with real estate who want to use 5G to really raise the value chain and moving from an asset owner to an experience enabler, where we can use 5G to deliver the usual IoT services like smart energy, smart occupancy, but also using video analytics as well as AR and VR collaboration to really transform the office from a normal, usual working place to a brainstorming place using AR and VR collaboration tool.
Thank you very much. And yeah, it's interesting. And Massimo, I see you've raised your hand as well and would love to hear your thoughts. And I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit because I know Verizon has done a lot with fiber. So I'd love to hear about how fiber and 5G may play together. But again, forgive me, I know you want to weigh in on our first questions here. So please.
Yeah, thank you, John. It's interesting. We really started probably 18 months ago to pitch the value of 5G to enterprise, and we have seen basically all the industries coming along, right? And someone said before that it depends really on the country. We have seen the combination of 5G and edge computing really opening a ton of innovative opportunities across all the industry. We also started in manufacturing as the most obvious one to streamline the operation in the production line. Think of the high definition video, which could capture even small anomalies in the production line, which could not be captured by human eyes. And the data processed at the edge could give insights on potential defect that before you really got to the point of producing defect materials. So enormous improvement. Think of the security also at the production line. But then, retail followed up, and we worked in the last 12 months with many retail companies in the two areas of efficiency and new revenue. So efficiency, like the smart shelf, with the inventory efficiency, the ability to capture the inventory on the shelf in a real time and drive replenishment through the supply chain, increasing the efficiency of the personnel in the store. But also that's on the saving side, but also on the different immersive engagement with customers. Think of a virtual fitting room, real-time heat map on the store, and dynamic in-store promotions. So we have seen examples where companies can project increased revenue by a different engagement on the floor. And then our industry followed, from healthcare with a patient monitoring, remote surgery, media and entertainment. We have 5G in 52 venues in the US. And we started to test a different engagement model with people in the venues where you can have more gamification of the event. You can see on your own phone or your own tablet, different views of one action in sport, for example, and you can have your own real-time replay. So a lot of opportunities. But even in the finance, we have been recently working with some finance accounts with the possibility to accelerate and automate some of the transaction in the venues. I would say every industry is coming along. It's proliferating in an amazing way, I tell you.
Got it. And are they replacing fiber with this, or to me, I think fiber is this tremendous complement to 5G. So again, not to put you on the spot if it's not your area,
No,
please.
no, but it's a combination. I would say cutting the cord is one of the main use cases of 5G. But you will always need the fiber in some cases. It will also be a combination of fiber. So to deploy 5G, you have to have a high densification of fiber, because you need to bring literally the fiber to where you have the 5G antennas to capture all the data. So you can really play with a mix of still, wireline fiber and wireless, depending on what you have to do. Fiber, will be there, and so why not using it as needed? For me, it's a combination of both.
Right. We're very bullish on fiber, to be honest, for the same reason. I think you need to set that whole foundation with fiber, particularly with mobile edge computing. You just can't do it without it, in my opinion. And Joey Penick, I saw you raise your hand for a moment.
Yeah, John, I'll echo what Massimo said there. I mean, 5G doesn't work without the fiber enablement, and the way 5G is deployed, with where you go from 4G, which are thousands of endpoints, to millions of endpoints when you start to activate it. Fiber is the underlining, infrastructure that delivers that. So it's a critical component for sure.
Couldn't agree more. So it begs the question, by the way, thank you again for everyone on the first question. And Massimo, before I move on, I see your hand is still up. I don't know if that was a mistake or not. I'm going to move on. I think we may have lost Massimo, but
No, I'm here. I'm down. No, my hand is down. I'm fine.
Oh, got it. So
it.
sorry about that. No worries. I'm dying to know the answer to this one. In speaking with your customers, how quickly do you think enterprise 5G is going to be adopted by end users? And again, which I think we already answered this, but which features of 5G are going to be most of interest? So, from an analyst standpoint, I'm hearing everything about network slicing, private networking, but I have to believe support of high connection densities for use in IoT, low latency for some factory operations, for example, might be of great interest. So again, timing and features, I'd love to hear thoughts. And Angie, thank you for raising your hand there. I'll go to you first.
Yes. So according to our view and our studies that we have done with our customers, they said to us they will make a decision within the next 3 years. So some of them earlier, some of them later. What we have the situation right now across our footprint is that first everybody wants to try out. What do we need 5G for? What is the part of 5G in my, for instance, production? Do I have 5G plus Wi-Fi? Also a big discussion. Do I need a certain integration? You have asked for the features. And I know our industry had made big announcement in the beginning, who has the lowest latency. What we see more than reaching really for the 1 millisecond is that a lot of customers asking for stable latency. Additionally, what we see also where an advantage is seen in cellular technology, I would like to include 4G, here is a certain security standards that you have and that you can manage the network, and nobody by design, yeah, so nobody can use your network once you have applied. So that seems to be for a lot of production owners that have a high interest in a stable environment to be very, very important. And therefore, I think the interest is high to try out 5G. And that's what we basically expect for the future. Where 5G is extremely useful is when you look at the number of the devices you can connect. And that will even be more in the future. So 5G is not at the end, right? So 5G will still develop. And the number of devices, the bigger the manufacturing part is of importance, with the addition to manage the moment when the devices connect. And that is something where sometimes Wi-Fi at the moment has its limitations. That's at least what our customers saying.
So I guess my question would be, does 5G private networking give enterprise clients the ability to allow their users to basically walk off campus and remain on that secure network no matter where they travel? Because that would set it apart from Wi-Fi, for example.
You can introduce that.
Okay.
A lot of customers are, when you look at their machines, they most likely will move only inside a certain area, which you can protect, of course, much better against any intruders, right?
Right.
But you can offer additionally, when you have a public network, of course, you can switch, right? Or you can offer both at the same time. So what we did is, for instance, we have splitted the frequency and offer a private network on the same frequency as a public network, and you got two identification numbers, and you can actually connect to both in kind of separate
Interesting.
ways.
Got it. Thank you. And Jeremy, your hand's been up for a while, so forgive me. We're going to go to you next. And I know Bell has been doing tremendous things with fiber and 5G, so would love to hear from you.
Yeah, I mean, I'll lift off your comments earlier, your question about 5G adoption and, how quickly. I'd agree with Angie's comments. We're seeing customers now looking to adopt, 5G. I'd say they're all planning for it, trying to figure out how it fits into the roadmap. And I think 5G is, I characterize it more as not a standalone play. It's an evolution of the client's network, right? So it's,
Right.
how do you leverage the fiber? How do I leverage 5G? How do I really transform the way that network operates and works, and the things it can do, whether the user's, static or moving, whether the manufacturing floor needs to be redesigned, reconfigured. Your business plan is going to determine the pace at which you want to redesign your network and take advantage of private 5G or other elements of it. I also think it was mentioned earlier at the beginning, all the other elements kind of around 5G, the ecosystem as customers transform to the cloud is important as well. So, I think 5G is a fuel, to transform your network and do different things. But part of that is also how do you bring MEC into the equation? How do you leverage the hyperscalers? Because our clients are all moving to the cloud. They need to get to it faster, easier, better. And whether that's, in a fixed world or wireless world, it's an experience, that we need to create. So I think, as we look at it, we're very pleased. We've invested billions of dollars, in fiber, because customers are going to stay on fiber. We're also pleased because we're going to need that, right, to light up more and more 5G. And now it's also about, okay, how do I connect the rest of the ecosystem together for our clients, right? The cloud providers, multi-edge compute, and make IoT simple. And kind of one other element that's often forgotten is then, just also wrapping security around, right? Because I think as you get into, massive IoT, you're also getting into different issues and concerns around security. So
Yes.
it's a big ecosystem we need to evolve and stitch together in a way that's seamless and easy for our clients.
I think people forget it really will take years, but I think the changes are going to, in the end, going to be quite remarkable. So Francesca, I see you have your hand up. So you have the floor.
Yeah. Yes. So just in terms of timeline, we also see around 2 to 3 years time, maybe 2 years. And what the customer want to see in those 2 years is incubation activities where, you know, we can help prove the value prop, developing the ecosystem, and prove the business model for all the parties across the value chain of the IoT services. In terms of features, it depends on the use case. It could be latency for real-time and dynamic process control, or it could be capacity for video analytics, whether it's public safety or smart building. Security is top requirement. I'm the vice chairman of a UK 5G security group, which is a group funded by the DCMS. And what we realize is that because 5G becomes enabler of smart verticals, it's really critical to have an holistic security framework, because it might happen, you know, anything that happen in the network may really create interruption for critical operation, whether in public safety, for example, or other critical operational activities. So what we are doing is really creating a national lab capability where we can bring all the ecosystem together and make sure that we secure we have a framework that not only the connectivity is secured, but also the data, the platform, and the application. Because eventually it's really it's an end-to-end services, digital services. So protecting the connectivity without protecting the application, the platform, and the data, it might not be enough. And for us at Colt, what we're doing, we're positioning the edge-centric network to really host software stack from other partners, whether, you know, it's Zscaler, SD-WAN, SASE, and that will also help really to deliver securely end-to-end digital services.
Right. Security is a huge issue, as we just saw here in the US with Colonial. And I think it's only going to get more challenging. Massimo, thank you. I see your hand up there, and I'd love to hear your thoughts here.
Yeah, I just want to follow up to what Jeremy and Francesca said about the ecosystem of partners, right? So, you know, with 5G and edge computing is a platform, but you really need an ecosystem of companies to bring it to life. And we have identified, you know, 4 different categories. So one is the network provider, like Verizon. The other is the cloud providers, and specifically thinking of cloud to the edge. And we are partnering, for example, with both AWS and Microsoft. Then there is software companies, right? Because if you really want to activate the edge, you need to have applications sitting at the edge. And so we have collaborated, for example, for SAP, and an SAP Edge software is running on our edge. And the 4th category is system integrators. We are collaborating with IBM, we're collaborating with Deloitte, because you need these system integrators to stitch everything together, right? To really connect the application sitting at the edge with the traditional core and really deliver the end-to-end capability to run application and data from the core to the edge. So those are the 4 critical components of innovation to our experience. And also want to comment on the timing. Yeah, I agree. We'll probably need a couple of years or 3 years before it scale, but it's happening right now. We have one customer, Corning, who is running 5G on the floor on a production site. We have seen companies really willing to move from proof of concept or lab to real small case productions. And so I think that we will see real cases in production within the next 12 months. Is it going to be a scale? No, but many companies will bring 5G and edge computing in their real environment within 12 months.
Got it. Thank you. Interesting. And Fánan, I see your hand up, and I'm anxious to hear thoughts on Europe and what's going on there. I know it's starting to evolve. So,
yeah, I just want to
before you
do
begin,
a couple
by the
builds
way,
on.
need to ask everyone, make sure you're on mute. We're getting a little bit of an echo. So sorry to interrupt, Fánan, please.
No problem. I think just a couple points in terms of the ecosystem to the four that Massimo has mentioned. There's two more that I think we're focusing as well. One is the device ecosystem. It's really critical that the devices evolve. So not part of the equation. And initially we're not looking as much at that, but it became quite obvious. Another one is actually the whole element of robotics, if you want, which is not so much just the end device, but even the part of, if you want, the machinery that goes behind it. There's a big part of that needs to evolve that allows, if you want, more flexibility, execution in terms of a 5G environment. So I would like to add those two. I think in terms of timing, I think the timing is actually right now. I see the same as Massimo mentioned. It's actually happening. One example, where the Ford factory we're setting up in Dutton is a 5G MPN. So it's happening now. Now, obviously, there's a lot of testing happening at the same time, and I recognize all the examples that people have created. And if you ask me what is the feature that people are most interested in, I think they're actually testing all of them. And I think it's pretty premature to say it's one or the other. Obviously, network slicing in terms of standards still has, if you want, some time to go and mature. But in practice, people are looking at MPNs, if you want, as an execution of a slice in a few years down the road. So I think it's too early to call. I think it's going to be all of them, if you ask me.
Got it. Interesting. I agree too. Bob, I see your hand up. Would love to hear your thoughts on this.
Yeah, just a quick comment and a question. I think this ecosystem discussion is really at the core of what's going to happen over the next 3 or 4 years. And then the hyper growth after that, I think is kind of the pattern we're on. I'd be very interested in the panelists' view, whether we've got 4 different types of people in the ecosystem or 6. What is the role of the telco beyond connectivity? I mean, that's the sweet spot, that's the history, whatever. But you're not willing to cede the rest of it to the other 4 or 5 players. What else are you going to do to add value to the equation so you carve out more than just the connectivity role?
Jeremy, I see your hand went right up on that one, so would love to hear what Bill thinks of that.
Yeah, I'm pretty opinionated on that question. I think there is more opportunity for the telcos to do more. We have a pretty sizable professional and managed services business, so we're actually ramping our professional services skills and managed services skills to work closely with the hyperscalers. So a strategy that says, customers are trying to leverage the cloud, shift to the cloud. How do we help them do that? How do we, create the right offers and packages and professional services to move clients to the cloud? As they move to the cloud, we're going to connect them on our network. We're going to offer MEC. We're going to, even establish some of our own IoT use cases and solutions. That's not saying we're going to be a software developer, but doesn't mean we can't find, which we've been doing, some specific use cases, put a service model around it, and support our customers under the premise, which is we talked about earlier, which is making it secure, making it highly available, low latency, high performance, giving our customers the ability to, say, digitally transform and shift to cloud offers, in a services model that they can count on for performance, security, and reliability. So we're leaning in and saying, we're going to be more than connections. I think for us, it's a shift in our managed services model. Obviously in traditional managed services in many organizations and in many telcos, it's our own people in seats, monitoring and managing. Now it's a little more of a DevOps model with the cloud operators, helping shift the customers to cloud and really help them have that high reliable, secure infrastructure, that they can count on. So that's our focus. I think there is lots of opportunity there, but you got to be calculated and take a tight partnership approach with the hyperscalers, which I think some are reluctant to do. We're going all in and figuring that out.
Yeah, I think that's smart. And I see a lot of hands up, and I promise to get to everyone. But Joey, I'm sorry to pick you out of a crowd, but I'm so interested in what Lumen is doing, because I know you've got a partnership going with T-Mobile. And what I've heard your presentations, it centers a lot on mobile edge compute. So while Jeremy was talking, I was also thinking not only of what Bell is doing, but what Lumen has done in the area. So would love to hear from you on that.
Absolutely. So Lumen is, we partner with Verizon and AT&T as well to help enable their infrastructure. But from an application and solution development perspective, we're working with T-Mobile. So really, guys, it's all about the application nowadays. I mean, if COVID didn't inflect a massive a movement into the digital transformation world, I mean, nothing else came out of it, right? So the world of everything's an app, whether it's your SAP module that you're running, your ERP on, or it's a mobile app like an Uber or something like that. I mean, so where things go as transactions, someone talked about it earlier in terms of latency, as latency gets reduced, the outcomes change dramatically. Lots of people held on to their server, didn't move to the cloud as quickly as some did, because of performance, right? They wanted to be able to put their hands on their equipment. But as you talk about the pervasive deployment of 5G and edge computing, whether it's mobile edge compute or just cloud edge compute, it changes, John, the performance of the application.
Right. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
And Federico, I see your hand up, so wanted to hear what you have to say.
Yeah, I mean, back to the Bob question, which is a tricky question for of course, a telco operator, because we are coming from being a connectivity provider.
Right.
What we are normally saying is that the ultra broadband connectivity, which means 5G, fiber as well, is a kind of enabler. So the connectivity will enable new technology, and we are organizing ourselves with three main, let me say, business unit, which is cloud, IoT, and cyber, which will support the digital transformation of our customers. So the speech that we normally provide to our own customers is ultra broadband connectivity, enabling the cloud, the IoT, and the cyber, which are those technologies which will enable the feature or the application we mentioned before towards different industries. So that's how we are going to differentiate to the pure connectivity provider. Let me say that. Of course, you need an ecosystem because you are not able to build up all those competencies, but this is the frame that we normally provided to our customer.
Got it. Thank you. And Francesca, I see your hand up as well.
Yes, I'm very keen on this one. I mean, even connectivity is not just connectivity, right? It's intelligent connectivity that is fully virtualized. It's AI driven, it's API driven to enable this bundling with the ecosystem, and it's cloudified. So I think, and that is very important because only through intelligent connectivity, which is service driven, we can really enable differentiated experience and be part of a strategic initiative, being a cloud migration or being a digital transformation. The other things that we can position, which is very important, is an edge-centric network. Because as we go towards a digital society, we're seeing that a trend on distributed topologies, distributed infrastructure, distributed connectivity, distributed security, distributed intelligence, and distributed application. So we felt that through an edge-centric network, we can really enable those distributed topologies that will depend on the specific IoT use case, whether it's smart retail, smart manufacturing. So I think this is very, very important, an edge-centric network and intelligent connectivity.
Great. Thank you. And great point. And Massimo, you've had your hand up for a while, so I'm going to give you.
Yeah, same thing. This is a very hot topic. It's interesting that everyone talk about 5G, but we are the carriers who deliver 5G. And as everyone said, Jeremy and Francesca, it's not just connectivity. Number one is intelligent connectivity, but then we're going to wrap it up with the professional services, with extended management capabilities and security. You touched about security, right? Opening up to millions of IoT devices creates a security threat. And so managing the platform, securely managing the platform and deliver it is much more than connectivity, is the foundation of everything.
Got it. Thank you very much. And Angie, I see your hand up as well, so would love to hear your thoughts.
Thanks. Just a thought on who is providing what. And I think, Bob, that goes to your question. What I truly believe is that 5G is the chance from different industry to work very closely together. And what was said about intelligent connectivity is absolutely right. So the telco providers will play their roles in there and hopefully play it smart. What I also believe in is that we would need to partner. I mean, some of us might have an IT department. In our case, it's called T-Systems. We can do system integration on top, which comes from a different unit. But at the end, when I look at, for instance, the device development that has to take place, so far, we are talking about consumer devices, massive numbers. So far on 5G, we do not have that many industrial devices that has developed. And therefore, we need to partner. We will not bring this up ourselves. And I think this is the good news on that, that we would build up this, as Massimo said, ecosystem to play with that, but also within our role. So I'm not believing that we should take over other people's roles, but keep the connectivity part and join forces with others. That doesn't mean that I cannot sell as a telco a device. Of course I can. Yeah, I do that today with the consumer devices. But I would rather look at the whole chain and believe that we need to work with others stronger than in the past.
Got it. And by the way, I've seen a lot of examples where the strategy of moving into adjacent markets has gone very wrong for telcos. So I think a focus on connectivity while sort of moving up the stack to maybe more advanced services is where we may see the world go. The one question, this is my favorite question of all because it's really a burning question for me, is we've seen, as I look at business revenue across the whole landscape here in the US, so I'll speak for the US, enterprise customers have been very reserved in their spending over the last several years, certainly 3 years. And I think a lot of the carriers have struggled to grow those budgets, which has surprised me, I have to say. And I'm curious whether, or with the advent of 5G and through your conversations today, whether you're seeing movement towards greater growth there. And I'd love to hear from any of you on that. Joey, we'll start with you and what's going on at Lumen. Thanks.
Yeah, John, and I just up front, I'd say budgets have grown, but where they've grown is in areas like security. We've talked about, someone mentioned the ransomware attack last week, and DDoS was extremely high. So what you've seen is an investment in non-traditional kind of communication areas. Customers really care about three things, right? Growing their revenue, cutting their overhead, and securing themselves, right? So, big pipe, investments and deployments have definitely not been the trend lately in the last year or two. Obviously, COVID and 87% of the domestic workforce going home in the US had an impact on that, and broadband and SD-WAN technologies are now really common. Those are cheaper technologies, John and team, that deliver not only but better outcomes for customers. So, well, to that point, customers are spending, they're just spending in different areas. We believe at Lumen that the return to office impact that we'll start to see in the August, September timeframe, when you have a really dynamic hybrid workforce, will provoke some spending here as well. Because if you think about it, guys, we're all sitting remote in our homes doing this call over a video. So video is now pervasive on both wireline and wireless, applications. So, it will be an area that companies invest in. won't have the old example of one or two people were on a conference bridge and they couldn't hear while everybody else is in the room. They're going to invest in a hybrid experience. So we think budgets will increase here. But remember, they're looking for efficiency within their own operations. And if that efficiency comes with cost reduction, John, they'll take it. Absolutely.
Got it. Thank you very much, Joey. And I see a lot of hands up, so we'll start with Antje. Thoughts?
Yeah, I think the pressure is on everybody and on the industry to digitize. And what we see right now, my impression was that there was a lot of hesitation how to do it. And I think the discussion around 5G often is somehow an inspiring technology that at the end forces actually our customers to think about it and to take a decision. So what we see more and more is the fear of missing out, right? The fear that you didn't do it in time. And what Joey said, so how can I ensure savings is something our customers need to think about. And same counts, for instance, even for the health sector, where, from my opinion, there's a lot to do that is not so technology advanced, but it has to be done step by step to become more digital. And that's our hope, that we believe it takes a while until the industry takes those decisions, because they're kind of heavy decisions. But if done so, we will see an impact on our business.
Got it. Thank you very much. And Fánan, I see your hand up as well. Would love to hear your thoughts here.
Yeah, I think the key point I would like to make is that I think 5G moves the conversation beyond the communication spend and beyond the IT spend. We're talking about a different line of the P&L, in terms of spend. And that drives a very different conversation. You're not talking with the procurement department. You're talking with the people that really run the operations in the business, okay? And that's a shift of paradigm. Obviously, we already operated in that category, but 5G makes it even more relevant. And operating in an ecosystem with partners, obviously, as others have mentioned. So I think we have to think about it a little bit different. And I think it opens up a lot of opportunities for the conversation to be different. The business case for 5G is not a business case of cost reduction. If you want optimizing a line of the P&L, it is a conversation of changing the whole operating model of a company. And I think COVID, obviously, at the same time that it made things move a little bit slower, it made things move a lot faster, because it has raised the importance of these issues for companies of all sizes. So I think it is a bit of a start and stop, but a stop and start, but a start that's going to be much faster than we predict.
Got it. Thank you very much. And Jeremy, I see your hand up as well.
Yeah, I'd agree very much with what Fánan just said. I think also, it's about the total cost of ownership of the customer. I think that the boundaries of the network are changing, right? Like, we used to think of a network as a connection and only, and it's not that. Like, I think all of us have virtualized our networks and created new solutions that sit inside SASE, for example. So for the customer, they may very well be saving money, but the money may be shifting. So as an example, as you virtualize the network, SASE can be part of the network. Other security service could be part of the network. The IoT catalog can be part of the network. So there are new revenue opportunities. That's not to say we should ever step away from the heritage of providing great fiber and great wireless solutions, but it's a complement, right? It's what are the pieces of that ecosystem that actually should be part of the network proposition and offer that help the customer? Because at the end of the day, it's really the customer lens, right? I think the pace of 5G, how they can transform, their business is a function of their business plans, and our job in showing them how you can leverage the ecosystem and the tools in our kit bag to help them transform, be secure, and really get to the business outcomes they have. So I think as a combination of, the ecosystem, the pieces we bring, the security we provide, and not losing track of the quality of the the networks and the advanced analytics and capabilities it brings, and really bringing that as a package to our customers in a way that's meaningful. That's where the new revenue comes from.
Very interesting, and I agree, by the way. Interesting. And Massimo, I see your hands
Yeah.
up been for a while, so please.
Yeah, my prediction is that there will be more investment in the technology, and those investments will be funded either by a reduction in cost in the operations or by growing revenue. We are talking about 5G and edge computing with the chief revenue officer, with the head of the operations. And so customers are building an extended TCO. I'm saving, by optimizing the supply chain, by investing more in the technology. That's a conversation. Or with the chief revenue officer, if technology will allow a company to increase by 20% the revenue at the store, that will pay for the technology. So there will be more investment on the technology, and we're working with the business leaders to create that business case, either more revenue or more efficiency.
Got it. Sorry, I lost my unmute button there for a moment. We have literally just a few minutes here, 3 minutes or so, but I'd love to hear any closing thoughts that you may have on how you think 5G is going to change the world as we look back 5 or even 10 years from now. And I know the jaw dropper for all of us here was the change in the world when the iPhone was introduced, and then fast forward 10 years, how remarkably different our world was. So any thoughts on that? I would love to hear it. And again, we need to be brief.
Hey, John, Joey here. I'd say, if we think about when we moved from 3G to 4G, the pervasive changes we saw there, if you guys remember watching YouTube videos and they all buffering and you couldn't really get through a video, to now, everyone walks around with a device watching video. I think it will be just as radical a change as we saw there to people, and you'll have a tough time remembering what 4G was like when 5G is really deployed and all the devices are available.
I agree. And I think the other big change we'll see is the elimination of a lot of wires in our life, much as we're starting to see, for example, in hospital settings. I've heard of a lot of trials in healthcare, particularly aimed at that front. So just a final thank you to everyone who participated in today's event. I really appreciate it. The insights were wonderful. And I'd love to turn it over once again to Bob for any closing remarks. And just again, a very special thanks once again to our sponsor today, IBM. So Bob, over to you.
John, thanks very much. I just wanted to add my thank you to the panelists. This is a phenomenal group of executives from around the world, and really appreciate your support on this. I love John's last question. I wish I knew what the future was going to look like. What I do think is we're going to see a world 5 or 10 years from now that we don't recognize today in the same way we did with the consumer world 10 years ago. And it's going to be exciting. It's going to affect every industry, every facet of every industry, and you're all going to be a huge part of it. So thanks for being part of this panel.